that, on this hearing to order for the Bonneville County Commission, here the area of impact with City of Idaho Falls. Present, we have myself, Commissioner Walker, Commissioner Christensen, and Commissioner Reed. Planning and zoning staff, administrative assistant, and a member of the public. Nobody online?
Nobody online.
Any previous records we need to make part of the record?
The packet and the material. I think there was some minutes in there.
Those, they will be.
It's got the minutes.
Yeah, but we don't have to have those. You can make them part of the record just as their
Okay.
recommendation.
Spots,
So we have all the minutes from the planning and zoning hearing.
Work session.
Without objection, we'll make that packet part of the record.
Then you want to read the notice.
Yes.
Published in the Post Register.
So this hearing was published. Notice is hereby given the following hearing will be held in Bonneville County Courthouse, 605 North Capitol, Idaho Falls, Idaho, September 18th at 1:30 p.m. by the Bonneville County Commissioners for the purpose of hearing to adopt Bonneville County Area of Impact Ordinance for the City of Idaho Falls, which is summarized as follows. An ordinance providing for the identification of an area within the county of Bonneville as an impact area for the City of Idaho Falls, providing for the ordinances and regulations to apply with such identified impact area, providing for the administration and enforcement of such ordinances and regulations, providing for the repealer clause, providing for severability, and establishing an effective date.
And then you can just read the date that it was
This was
published.
published on the 3rd of September 2024, Post Register.
Okay.
Yeah. Turn the table to you.
So there's just a few things that I want to point out from the statute, since this is the first area of impact we've done since the statute changes. I'll just make this quick here, but it's 67-65-26 under Idaho statutes, and it says areas of impact are properly under the jurisdiction of the county because the elected representatives of citizens in areas of impact are county officials, not city officials. Cities should receive notice of and may provide input on applications brought to the county in the area of impact. Cities do not govern or control decisions on those applications. Areas of impact should be planned for growth and development and should not be used to stop growth and development that conforms to applicable plans and ordinances based on the ability and likelihood of a city or cities to annex lands within that area of impact in the near future. So that was a couple of things I wanted to point out. Couple other things is it references specifically areas where municipal or public sewer and water are expected to be provided within 5 years, and other public service district boundaries should be considered. And then areas that are likely to be annexed in the city within the next 5 years should be included in the area of impact. The rest of it kind of just goes through and explains the process for doing it. The City of Idaho Falls has been notified. I have worked with them. I actually met with the city council last Monday, and I thought they were going to have a representative here today, but I don't see one. So just a few things I'll point out from the actual ordinance itself. The first is obviously that we're considering areas that can reasonably be expected to be annexed into the City of Idaho Falls within the next 5 years. Under section.
That's according to statute.
According to the statute that we just went through, yes. And then section 5 subdivision ordinance, just in there that we're adding that all the improvements in the impact area shall be built to the city standards if those are more restrictive than those of the county. And then also adding the statement that the subdivision can be annexed into the City of Idaho Falls at the sole discretion of the city when any portion of said land becomes contiguous to the City of Idaho Falls corporate limits in accordance with Idaho Code section 50-222. Further in section 6 under development agreements, that language is in there again. We put the annexation language in there, and then it also references 6.3 of the BMPO Access Management Plan for studies. Section 8, city services, is very similar to our agreement with City of Ammon. Reads that the city of Idaho Falls at its sole discretion may allow for the extension of city utilities and those of its utility providers, except for Idaho Falls Power, to unannexed properties if the property does not meet the requirements for annexation into the city at that time. Section 9 addresses impact fees. There was some interesting conversations with the city to dive into impact fees a little further due to the time constraints to have this done. We decided it was best just to move forward by saying the city of Idaho Falls desires to collect impact fees within the county area of impact, and MOU must first be negotiated between the Idaho Falls City Council and Board of County Commissioners prior to any collection of impact fees outside city limits. Section 10 refers to annexation. If that refers to Exhibit C, which is a feasibility to annex letter that the city has to fill out. Currently, this is what we have in place with Ammon. There's no specific time frame on the city filling that out and getting it back to us. So that's something that you might want to consider as we talk about this today. And then the rest is just the normal language under the renegotiation, severability, effective date. And then just looking at the map quickly. So in talking with the city council and the input that I received from them at my meeting, there really wasn't any large areas of concern with them. Agreed with the majority of it, with the exception of the southwest corner, which is down where Amazon and Smith Chevrolet and those properties are located at. The discussion that we had at the city council level was the reason that that was withheld is because it can't be considered reasonably annexable in the next 5 years. Because the city does not have any policy that accepts outside service inside their city limits. It has to be on City of Idaho Falls water and City of Idaho Falls sewer. That was countered by the mayor at the meeting saying, well, that's not exactly the case. There has been instances that we've done that. Maybe we would like the county to reconsider that, which I followed up asking for a request of the meeting minutes where that was discussed and in policy or city policy referring to that, and have received nothing since last Monday regarding any policy that the city has allowing external services into their city limits. So that was their main concern, was that area. I would still stand by my initial, I don't believe that's annexable because it's already serviced by other public utilities. Part of that is part of a sewer district that if the city doesn't accept that district would have to be de-annexed. They would have to enter an agreement with the sewer district to receive service in that area. So I think it's just something that's a further drawn out process that then we can resolve at this time.
Can I ask a couple of things on that?
Mhm.
Wouldn't it require an agreement on behalf of a sewer board to allow them to count that?
Correct.
So they'd have to go at Versant to allow that. And
Yes.
aren't the parcels there generally larger than 5 acres?
Most of the parcels in that area are larger than 5 acres and would be protected by the forced annexation state statute as it sits.
Which doesn't prohibit them from going in, getting them to voluntarily go in or out of an area.
And that's something that I talked to the city council about, is even without it being in the area of impact, if those property owners there voluntarily went to the city and said, hey, we want to be incorporated, because the city's adjacent, they could still annex at any time and the city would have to work out the services with them at that point. But just because they're outside the area doesn't mean that that's something that's prohibited. And the other argument that's been brought up on that from city council is they wanted that area in to be able to protect the walkability along the Snake River and the green space along the Snake River. I understood and heard that concern and have since been working with the city on putting together an MOU between the city and the county on all development along the Snake River within Bonneville County, so that we can just be consistent in what we require, whether it's a city or a county development. So that's all that I have.
Point. Yeah, because I did ask you about the timeline for them signing the exhibit C, the annexation feasibility, and based on several years of experience, city seems to move quite slowly sometimes. We've had instances where a year and a half later, they couldn't get an answer. I think it'd be reasonable to put a time frame on them. Say 30 days, because this is set up so the Idaho Falls, city development director signs that and said we have, see, it'd be well, it's feasible for them to annex.
Yeah, basically, and we have it set up with and if a person comes in and says, hey, we want to develop this property and it's in the area of impact and adjacent to city limits. We tell them the first thing they have to do is go talk to the city development director and get that form filled out as to whether or not the city feels like the property is reasonably annexable at this time and they can support it. And if that form is filled out that they will, and that they want them to annex, then we tell them they have to go through the city process before we can consider anything in the county. If they fill out that form basically saying we don't feel like this property is annexable at this time, we can't service it, we understand it already has existing rights in the county, then we'll move forward from a county perspective. It just kind of streamlines the process instead of basically saying, well, go to the city of Ammon or the city of Idaho Falls and run a 6-month hearing process to find out if you can or can't annex. It gives them an upfront of this is the reasonable future of this property.
I think it's reasonable to have a time period.
Time period, and basically some language in there. Take their own input and come back for approval and final. Some language in there that if it's not returned in that time, it's deemed that they're not interested or whatever language you have there. Otherwise, you're basically condemning somebody to develop their property. We've had a couple of areas like that, but the negotiations went on for years, trying to get them to make a decision, and the landowner actually went to develop the way they really wanted to. Johnson Legacy. Right. So that's reasonable after 2 or 3 years, and then we got sued for it. So I just soon have some type of a deadline. The third, I was thinking longer back. Bill Austin pointed out that this is part of the requirement anyway. That they fill this in, and it shouldn't take more than 30 days unless you're trying to get a building permit.
Yeah.
No, and most of the time what we do is if we send them over from our office, we'll give them a copy of that and say the city needs to fill this out and you need to bring this back to us. So they're already going to that meeting with that form in hand, knowing that they need to leave with it filled out.
Because we will still require, if the city is willing to change and extend their services into the area of impact, we'll still require that they file on the deed. It's recorded, the request to annex when they're contiguous.
Correct.
Okay.
Which is addressed under statute 50-222, the annexation statute.
That's the only concern I had on that is, you don't want it to get caught up in the bureaucratic whirlpool that just goes round and round and round.
And the state did a good job of clarifying that at this last legislative section when they redid the annexation statute. It actually is specific in there that as long as that language is in there, that is considered consent to annex, which gave the city a little more teeth than they previously had on those type of agreements.
I had just a couple questions. Just kind of for some background. Because I know I've been, along with the other commissioners, working to get this area of impact agreement since I came into office nearly 8 years ago. When was the last area of impact agreement with City of Idaho Falls?
February 13th, 2001.
That's
23 years.
And do we have agreements with all the other cities in our county?
We do, some of them are around the same time frame. Iona and Ammon have recently been redone in the last 2 years, so.
Okay, so same time frame.
So
thought we
you've
had
got,
more current
you've got
with Ammon.
Yukon, Ammon and Iona were done in the last 2 years, so they're more current. But you've got Yukon and Ryrie and Swan Valley and Irwin, who still are in this 2001 timeframe that we'll need to redo as part of this process.
Are we working with them?
We're planning to begin once we get this one completed.
Okay. The other
Before
question
you
I
move
have,
on to another area, let me clarify a few
Okay.
things. Because 5 years after 2001, we started those negotiations. So I said add a one in front. We've
Yeah.
had it for 18 years.
yeah,
And, even recently, we haven't been able to get a meeting. With the city council to work on this.
right,
It's, the other cities were put off because we felt like we would get Idaho Falls done and use that as a model for the others. But we finally realized that wasn't gonna happen, so we started working with Iona and Ammon to get those done and then checking off the list. And so this will be a model to fulfill the original intent, to model the others.
yeah,
It'll take a little modification with Iona and Ammon, because we did that before this law changed. So we have to change theirs based under this.
And I would just say the intent moving forward is that with every city, we'll have a yearly area of impact meeting where we'll discuss the current contents of the area of impact as well as the map. Determine if any changes are needed. This only requires every 5 years, but just with how things change year by year, we think it's good to just check in and make sure we're headed the right directions.
the other question I had is with the map. So when I look at it, have you done the calculations? What percent of this entire envelope is developed? And what is open space?
I haven't recently. The reason that I haven't is the state statute kind of changed to gear it towards no city area of impact should extend beyond a 2 mile radius. And you should consider the areas that are reasonably annexable in the next 5 years. So the approach that we've taken on the new agreements, rather than this is the percentage developed, this is the percentage of growth that you have, is looking at where current development is happening, what sort of applications they're receiving, and does it seem reasonable that within this area, you'll see some sort of growth in the next 5 years? It probably won't fill up the whole area. I know realistically speaking, in some instances, some people would look at this and say, well, maybe some of this is more like 10 or 15 years of growth, but it's more just giving us a broad area that we can then, in the next 5 years, when we see where growth actually goes, really hone into.
Well, when I look at it, I see more than 10 to 15 years of growth. I see about 30% open space, I would say. Or,
But part of what I hope this new law, and the legislature's worked for years on it too, is by shrinking it down to where you can reasonably provide the services, it stops. I think it was referred to by the State Tax Commission on one annexation, that City of Idaho Falls was one of the most egregious cases of amoeba-like growth they had seen, and that's been 10 years ago. This encourages the infill, which I think we should try to do.
yeah, that's where I was kind of going with it. And I agree with the area that you have defined, with the exception maybe of that northeast. I mean, that's, why is that drawn like that?
Northeast going along US Highway 20,
Yeah,
they already have a
you've got
subsequent,
that one section.
they have a subsequent application that almost goes to Highway 20. So in this area up here, top right corner, they're gonna be pretty much to the highway. This area here, we talked about the reason we ended up moving this out a little bit.
That's the one I was curious about.
Is if you take this triangle area here,
Yeah.
like this, almost all of that is already developed in the county. It's existing subdivisions. Now, we went back and forth on, well, is that annexable? Will you annex it at some future date? And I would say probably more than likely not, but we left it in there to kind of see what happens for the next 5 years, and then that pre-developed area might cut back a little along these roadways, just depending. But here is where you have the new peaking plant. And the city's intent is to try to get that annexed within the next 5 years. And then this we pulled up because of ITD's connector. Just thinking that, well, if the city gets to here, then it would probably be pretty reasonable with that new connector, that growth starts to infill there. I don't know that we're set in stone on that. We could pull it back a little bit from where it is. We went back and forth in discussions on that, but just felt like because majority of this was already developed ground, that there really wasn't that.
So in that area of developed ground, I'm assuming that's not on city utilities, city services.
It varies. Some of it's an LID, so the sewer is provided by the city of Idaho Falls, but most of the water is Falls water. Yes, the city does have a line out there, and they have an agreement with Falls Water on what they can and can't serve, but I don't know what the future of that will hold.
Well, to be able for them to meet that goal of annexation in 5 years. That's where they'd have to get that agreement, which I wanted to point out. We heard that same thing 7 or 8 years ago about those minutes that never materialized. You know, on the agreement, they
Right.
need to get an agreement, with Falls Water or change their. I don't know if they'll do it by ordinance, by rule, whatever they do, to allow others to serve inside the city limits, because they've made it very clear. Over the years that they will not allow anybody to serve outside of the city limits.
That's why I asked about those being in the area of impact when the stuff down south was not included
Yeah,
for that reason.
and some of my view on the growth areas as you look at stuff that's reasonably annexable or could be future annexable is just to make sure, even if we're doing development there in the county, let's say, and the city doesn't happen to annex it for the next 10 years. At least you're getting that development built to city standards, so when they become adjacent, it becomes reasonably annexable in the future instead of being really, really conservative with all the lines and then still developing in the county. And then when the cities do get there, it's harder to annex because it doesn't comply with any of their standards or anything that they set up. So it's an opportunity for the city.
Okay, I understand that side. Can I continue? So let's go to the west then.
Here,
That above that, yeah, that's that top square.
so,
Northwest, because a lot of that is under New Sweden irrigation.
yeah, so
And prime agricultural ground.
we talked about that and went back and forth. The city actually was pretty amenable to saying we can pull that back if you want. The new airport director felt really strongly that we needed to keep that in there for the protection of the airport area. So my goal of leaving that in there was just to try to show good faith on the county part that we realize that the Idaho Falls Regional Airport is a valuable asset to the community. And to try to somewhat say, hey, we need to get together and sit down and make a plan if there is going to be airport expansion. Will that reasonably happen in the next 5 years? I don't know. That's probably an area we could look at a little more, but that was the thought process behind it, was just to show good faith in the county saying, we realize this is a valuable area.
The problem is if we leave that in there and then somebody wants to, I know we don't have it complete yet, but the ag protection zone, what's that gonna do to some ag ground out there if they desire to?
So that'll be up to the board at that time. We're not going.
Even though it's in the area of impact?
We're not going to restrict and say you can't have an ag protection area in the area of impact. We're just saying that's something that should be considered, and whoever the governing board of commissioners is at the time that makes that decision can decide whether or not that should still go in a protection area.
That'd be the ag protection.
Yeah.
That's how we have it proposed currently.
Yeah,
I think
I think we're encroaching quite a bit out right in that area,
And-
just because it's
Yeah.
serviced. So, I mean, those are major canals from New Sweeten irrigation that comes through there.
And when I visit with each one of you after this too, I'm more than willing to hear your thoughts and take that under consideration for the final ordinance and findings that we'll prepare for this.
Okay. That's all the questions I had.
Any comments or questions from the public? Here first and then online.
Yeah, well, I'm just curious how that impacts. I'm the northeast section,
Name in it.
right up
Yep,
15th
your
East.
name and address.
Terry Eliason, 4261 North 15th East. And I'm just wondering how this impacts me as a homeowner who has livestock. And, you know, I mean, on a well, have my own septic, no issues, don't wanna be on city water or city sewer. You know, how is this gonna impact me and my neighbors in the future? Moving
So-
forward, again, you know, we may have a road running right through my house too with. You know, the interchange that they were talking about, they had plans that actually looped the road.
So the only time it will impact you is if the city gets to a point where they grow out and totally surround you and you have less than 5 acres and could potentially be force annexed. Or if you voluntarily chose to annex and make a change to your property. Other than that, your existing property rights, being able to have livestock, none of that changes. Unless you voluntarily do it, or if you have less than 5 acres and at some point the city totally surrounds you and they move forward with a forced annexation on your property.
So I only have 2.5 acres. My neighbors to the south of me have 3 acres, and then we have a large agricultural area that used to be the Payne Farm. You know, right now, I don't think that any of my neighbors are planning on moving or wanna be annexed, so does that protect me? If the other properties around me deny annexation?
Yeah, I mean, if they don't go to the city and approach annexation just like you don't, then there's no way that they're going to surround you, right?
Okay,
So
it
that,
has to be an actual.
yeah,
touch and go
this is
for it.
just kind of
Yeah.
saying we project the city's growth will go here, but even, let's say you weren't in the area of impact and the city grows out there and surrounds you, you would still fall under those same criteria. So really, nothing changes for you other than once the city's adjacent, if you're in the area of impact, it gives you more development options if you were to ever go that route.
You point out, either issue was all right.
What was your street again?
I'm 15th east,
You're
northeast, right between 20 and 26.
near the, where the steel capo.
Where what
was,
is?
the
Should be right
steel
out
capo
here.
Used to be. Is,
I'm right across, I'm
Right.
right across from the St. Leon Business Park, or
Okay.
Commerce Circle Way.
okay.
So over here,
Okay,
right?
Yeah,
Just past.
I mean, it's 15th East, it's where, I mean, they were gonna put the interchange in off of 20 and drop it down to
Oh,
Delbert.
so you're
Yeah.
up further.
No.
No, I'm,
you're
no, I'm.
St. Leon Road, St. Leon Road.
St. Leon Road, I would think it's a little square farther to the west or to the east.
Okay, so
Yeah, I think that's 15th East right there.
Oh,
There's
so she's the
15th
other
east.
side, yeah.
So she's in here, here's, the.
The
St.
business
Leon
park.
Commerce Business Park, so she's gonna be in.
Okay.
We have some people online that are also in this area.
They're my next door neighbors.
Yeah.
Anything
And
else? Any other questions from you? And then we'll go to your neighbors.
Nope, no, go to.
Okay. Any comments from the folks that are online? Yeah, you're muted if you're. Can't, time. Melinda, your mic is muted if you wanted to make a comment. Message him.
She asked her.
I didn't see the message window pop up, so. She's trying to go someplace, a school bus.
Oh, she's retired and she's a bus driver now. She was in.
I don't know if she, but.
There we go.
Okay, I think I got it unmuted.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Did you have a comment or question?
I think Terry did a great job in asking the questions that really were on us. The one question I did have was none of us were notified. Received a notification on the people that she contacted. And I wasn't able to find it in the post register.
So it's published in the Post Register on September 3rd, is that correct?
Yes.
So it should be in the legal section of the Post Register on September 3rd. We have to follow the publication statute from the state statute, which if there's more than 200 property owners that are affected, all that we have to do is publish in the local newspaper. So we did not send out individual notices, but we did publish in the Post Register.
Okay.
How many people received the post register? And I mean, it was in the post register one time. I mean, this directly impacts our lives. And I
We
mean,
would
what about
agree.
email?
We'd agree wholeheartedly with you, and unfortunately, that's legislation. So talk to your legislators and help us get that changed.
Yeah, cause that's ridiculous. I mean, it's.
Yeah.
We
I
agree.
mean, one time in the post register, who reads the post register? You
We
know,
agree heartedly with you.
We
But
do.
we're required
We
to
do
do
also
that.
always put all the notices out on our county website. But unless you know to go there to look for them too, it's kind of the same
yeah, cause I mean,
problem.
we're, you know, unfortunately, as a public, we're not really well informed about this. And a lot of times we don't know what our legislatures do and they slide these things in under the table on us. And it's like, hey, guess what? It's for the greater good, or maybe not.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, I know there's been a push from cities and counties, public entities to get that law changed for a
Yeah.
number of years. And
how long has it been in?
we haven't been successful at that.
I've been in office for almost 30 years and it predated me.
That's the law. You have to publish in the newspaper.
I know, but I mean, it's like everything else that, I mean, and granted, 200 people or whatever property owners. Then you only have to do it that way. Every time there's been something that's affected some of my properties, cause I have something on 81st North. I usually get something in the mail. It would be nice if it, you know, even email would be nice. I mean, everybody's seems to have our emails, but. Because the only reason I find out is Melinda walked in, I think, to your office yesterday because we had an issue with a neighbor. And some, you know,
Yeah,
shady stuff that's going on. And, you know, that's the only reason she found out about this.
well, like I said, we agree wholeheartedly with you, and I'll be over in Boise
You reckon
this
just the
week, and I'll
inside?
be over a couple of weeks later. Again, and we talk about this every year, but
Yeah,
they have more lobbyists for the news agencies than we do, so.
Well, and times have changed a little too, because the
Dramatically.
newspaper used to be the only, well, now there's a whole bunch and they tried to broaden that out. But you seem to have reluctance on elected legislators to go against the people who buy ink by the barrel.
yeah, well, that's why we need term limits, but that's another.
Yeah, we can give you a list of all the legislators and their
Yeah,
contact information, so you
that
can,
would.
Yeah.
Okay.
absolutely. Any other
Bring
comments
it
or
back to
questions?
anything.
Melinda, could you give us your full name and address, please, for the record?
My name is Melinda Harrell, Harrell. and my address is 4240 North 15th East, Idaho Falls, Idaho 83401.
Thank you.
Okay, no other comments? Then we'll
You've got one other member of the public.
No comment.
You
We'll,
still member of the public.
close the hearing. Um, and Austin will meet with us individually and discuss this, and we'll reschedule.
Probably about 2 weeks.
Yeah, a couple weeks.
Potato harvest, then you've got.
Oh, that's right. Smoke harvest agreements and.
I'll put together some proposed findings as well as a finalized ordinance for adoption, so.
All right, thank